It's Edward Zula here. I hope you are having a blessed day, and I just wanted to devote today's post to some of the questions I've had about reincarnation. I get many questions about reincarnation, and so in general, let me read some of the questions to one. Do you believe in reincarnation is one of them. Another one is, will I be reincarnated? I have one, is my grandchild my father reincarnated? I probably have 15 or 20 different questions on the topic of reincarnation, but I also have questions about irrational fears coming from past lives. Now, that's a pretty sophisticated question. It's not something I would normally expect to hear, but I do want to touch on that as well. So the idea of reincarnation, let's just be pretty plain. I'm not going to get into the dogma or the language of any particular religion or sect when I talk about this principle, because there's so many people around the world in different religions and different backgrounds and different cultures that somehow incorporate reincarnation or the recycling of spirit into their religious beliefs. So the idea there is that when you pass over, let me back up. The idea there is, while you're in this life, you're in your current lifetime, you are here because you have made some kind of a contract that you are going to come and work out specific lessons to improve your soul's vibration, to increase the vibrational level so that you are more godlike in your being. And those lessons may be things like knowing how to give unconditional love, knowing how to receive unconditional love, knowing when to trust, how to trust, etc. Trust is a big one. Unconditional love is a big one. There are many different emotional issues that have to do with the elevation of our spirit. Kindness is another one. So you might be on this earth to learn about, kindness and how to accept kindness, how to recognize kindness, or how to give kindness and how to be kind and how to be forgiving. And we work through those lessons, and hopefully in our life we are given lots of opportunities to work on them and to get to the point where, when we are ready to cross over, that we have basically done our homework on those particular things. That's not always the case. We haven't always finished things. Sometimes, because of our free will, our ego, we make bad choices, and we continue to need to learn about unconditional love or forgiveness or what have you. So I hope this is going to be a consciousness-raising experience for everyone. So we are, if we believe in well, we all believe in unconditional love, I hope. But if we believe in reincarnation, and I want to say that I have to honor your own belief system. If your belief system does not include reincarnation, I understand that, and you don't need to watch this video. You don't need to convert believing in it, but I do hope you'll listen and you will watch and you will think about this, because there are many references in the Old Testament and in the New Testament that refer kind of subtly to the whole concept of reincarnation. The idea of Christ coming again, that in itself is an allusion to reincarnation. So, generally, my understanding and my experience from what I've read and what I have had happen in my own office when I do past life regressions with clients that want to do a past life journey. I have come to learn that a couple of things. One is that a soul will travel linearly, that your spirit will go through time. The concept of time is an entirely different topic, and I'm not getting into that here, okay? I have a friend who talks to me about time bending and everything happening at the same time, and it just sometimes gives me a headache. So I'm not going to get into that. But the idea is that the spirit moves through time and it is learning lessons and working on lessons as it moves through time. Are these lessons sequential? No. You may have to learn about unconditional love or trust or kindness. You may have that experience 500 years ago, and then in your next lifetime, it's a different lesson. And because the opportunity is provided for you to come into a lifetime where you need to learn about that, where you need to learn kindness or forgiveness. And then 300 years later, you might be reincarnated again, and you're continuing the lessons you started with. So the lessons themselves skip around through your different lifetimes. The ultimate goal, of course, is to raise our vibrational level, to complete our lessons, and to be more godlike, and to vibrate in the highest level of spirit. So, in answer to the question about my grandchild being reincarnated as being the reincarnation of my father, I do want to say also from experience and from my reading, it is not, when you consider the enormity and the infinite concept of time and space. Yes, there are clusters of souls that reincarnate, which is an entirely different subject. I haven't been asked about that, but it is a possibility that groups of people do reincarnate, groups of spirits kind of stay together and reincarnate together. But with this specific question, I want to say this. We have, as humans, when we lose someone we love very dearly, and then we have a new birth coming into the family, a new child coming into the family, it's really, really, really tempting, especially if you're an empath, especially if you believe in this, especially if you believe in the magic of the universe. And it certainly is magical. The temptation to believe that that child coming into the family is a deceased relative is really great. It's really, really great. It's what we might wish for, that we get to have that person again in our lives. Is it possible? Yes. But the purpose would be so that that person would have a chance to continue working on lessons, maybe from a different perspective, with the same souls that it had to learn lessons with in the past. So this isn't about love and bonding and being together again. This is about that person coming back to continue to learn lessons, or to give you an opportunity to learn a lesson from a different perspective. So their coming back, in that case, is a gift to you, to give you challenges and to give you opportunities to grow stronger. Is it impossible? No. Is it likely? No. In most cases, we are talking about hundreds of years between incarnations. In other cases, there are instantaneous reincarnations, and I've talked a little bit about that, and I've touched on that when I talk about children who cross over, and it is the oops factor, the second oops factor of, oops, I'm needed somewhere else. And in that case, it is very likely that that spirit is going to another lifetime very, very quickly. I do know of cases where I have done regressions with people, and they were actually regressed. They were actually reincarnated or came back. And I have to explain regressions, but they came back 35 years after they crossed over. Now, that's a really short period of time. And I mean, when you think about the enormity of this, it's not sort of like going off into the kitchen and coming back in. It is really, you go through a transformational process, and you have to learn lessons, and you have to be prepared for the entry into the next lifetime. So the way one of the fascinating things about this particular instance was when I asked the person to speak from their higher consciousness and tell me if there was any spirit on the earth presently, because you're reincarnated so soon, were there any people on the earth now that you recognized from that lifetime that you had 35 years ago? And the person said no. And normally, when I do a regression with someone, they will say, yes, I recognize this person from many, many lifetimes ago, and this person from many lifetimes ago, and so forth. It made perfect sense to me, because the person said the people that I knew are either still living the lifetime that, because they died very, very, very young, they're either still living in this life, they haven't crossed over yet, or the ones that have crossed over haven't reincarnated yet. So this person did not know anybody and was interacting with new souls, learning new lessons in this particular lifetime. Okay, I want to talk about a little bit about irrational fears. Now, there is a connection between irrational fears, and there can be a connection between irrational fears and past lives. I did a regression on someone who had an irrational fear of, it was irrational, and he recognized it as such, being afraid that he hadn't completed something or he had missed something in the list. The kind of work that he did in this lifetime involved very detailed lists that he was responsible for making sure that everything was correct and checked and so forth. And he had this irrational fear that he was going to miss something, and it was causing him to get up in the middle of the night and go back to work and check the list that he already knew that had been checked over and over and over again. So we did a regression, and we went back to a time, I think I may have just had a flash in my recording, and if you saw that flash, I would really like you to comment about it. But I just saw a flash, and I don't know whether it went behind me or in front of me, but there was definitely a flash that happened. In that lifetime, it was back in the 17th to 18th century, where he was responsible for working at a dock and having cargo coming off a ship, and he had the manifest, and he was in charge of, making sure everything was coming off the ship. Well, what had happened was, in that lifetime, is his glasses had broken, and they were made out of glass, and he basically had to fudge it. He had to say that everything was correct for fear of losing his livelihood, losing his being ridiculed, all these other things that would have happened, consequences that would have happened to him in that lifetime. Now, that's what I call a psychic imprint. That is a fear that gets imprinted on you that has absolutely nothing to do with your lessons. Now, there's another case of someone who had an irrational fear of mountain lions, and they lived absolutely nowhere near where they would encounter a mountain lion, but we did a regression, and it turned out that in a lifetime, in very early Native America, they had actually been killed they were unsuspectingly killed by a mountain lion, because they had not been learned to hunt. They had chosen a different path, which was a spiritual path, and they did not learn to hunt or to listen, and they wound up being pounced upon by a mountain lion and killed. But in this lifetime, there was no actual real physical there was no physical reason for the mountain lion. But what we did do is we talked about it in terms of what that fear could represent. And that was really very, very helpful to this client. But it was still irrational fear. He had to learn to disconnect the fear of mountain lions from this particular lifetime because it didn't make any sense. So I could talk a lot about this. I do think I answered the questions. I do believe, yes, you can be reincarnated and probably will. If you don't believe in reincarnation, I honor that. It may very well be possible that some spirits are not reincarnated. That may very well be the case. And that may be part of whatever lesson they have to learn about their relationship with their belief in their God. And there's lots more examples of irrational fears where, I mean, what is an irrational fear? It's a fear that you have that has no relationship to the life that you're living now. And it seems to come out of nowhere. Like I understand people being afraid of flying because they do have to travel sometimes by air, or they have fears of car accidents because that's not an irrational fear. An irrational fear is a fear of dying by, an Egyptian scarab, bite from an Egyptian scarab, or different kinds of things like the mountain lion. Fears of losing your home to, I don't know, some kind of a particular tragedy, when there's no likelihood of that kind of thing happening in your lifetime or in the world that you live in. So I just want to kind of wrap this up and say that if I didn't answer your question about reincarnation, please ask again, ask away. 17 questions, 18 questions I had were all very, very similar, and I've tried to cover them all in this little thing. And irrational fears likewise. But remember, there is such a thing as a soul imprint. Something can be imprinted upon your soul that creates an irrational fear or a shadow that you bring with you into your current life. And it can be paralyzing. It can affect a lot of things that you're doing. You need to understand that if you have an irrational fear, it should probably be addressed and I would be certainly happy to address that with you when the time comes and we're able to all be together again in a safe way and nobody's health is at risk. I will certainly resume doing my past life regressions with people to deal with irrational fears. I don't like to do them just out of curiosity. Honestly, I want it to be something helpful and therapeutic that's going to help you move forward in this life. I don't really like to entertain curiosity regressions. It is serious work for me. So I love you all. I want you to take care. everything means, you know, you mean the world to me? I want to add a tag onto this about my prediction for something historic happening in August. And now people are asking me again about, oh my goodness, is, you know, Kamala Harris being selected as Joe Biden's running mate? Is that the historic thing that you were talking with? I want to refrain from commenting. Yes, it's historic in its way because, number one, she is a woman of color. She has two different backgrounds. And yes, that's in of itself historic. But I don't want to really get into it. I'll be more comfortable talking about the historic event after the time has passed. Okay, love you all. Stay safe, social distance, wash your hands, wear your masks until we're told that we don't have to do that anymore. And God bless you, and be well, and be blessed by your spirits and your ancestors and your loved ones. And I'll see you again soon.